Welcome to the first module of the Service Automation Framework. In this module, we will start discussing what service automation actually is, and we'll provide you with some key terminology and concepts that relate to service automation. But before we get started, let's pause for a second and discuss what is service automation actually. So let's take a look at the companies that you see here on the screen. What do all of these organizations have in common? Well, besides the fact that you should note that all of these organizations are called digitally disruptive companies and that they've been growing very fast in recent years, they are also all service providers, meaning they provide services to their customers. And if you think about this a little bit deeper, you might also see that all of these companies provide digital services or automated services. You can interact with each of these companies and use their services without ever having spoken to a particular person that works there. Ask yourself the following question. Have you ever actually spoken to somebody who works at Uber or Booking, Geico or Netflix? There's a very good chance you haven't. And that is because all of these organizations use the principles of service automation. They provide services which have been completely automated. And that brings us to one of the following questions. What is service automation exactly? Well, obviously, service automation is the automated delivery of a service. It needs to be executed automatically without human interference. So as soon as a user requests a service, it needs to be provided in an autonomous fashion. And that immediately also gives an idea about who triggers the services. Service automation is characterized by the fact that it's triggered by the requests of autonomous users. They decide when they want to receive a service, and they should initiate the process of requesting that service. From that, you can also immediately see that you will need to have some kind of technology in place in order to request services. Within the service automation framework, we refer to that as self-service technology or a platform. And that is really necessary in order to make sure that people can request services whenever they want it. Last but not least, service automation is defined by the fact that it's aimed at an optimal user experience. If you don't like the way a service is executed and you don't enjoy the experience, there's a very slim chance that you will use that service in the future again. So these are some of the key characteristics of service automation. And what we will do in the service automation framework is that we will design a structure and a methodology to make sure that we can accomplish this on a step-by-step approach. So what service automation is really all about is that it provides a way that you can move from providing analog services all the way to digitized and automated services. The quick rise of service automation very much coincides with something which we call the rise of the self-service generation. A new and younger generation is coming to the workforce, and these are the people that grew up with the internet and mobile technology. They have a mobile interface that connects them to the rest of the world almost instantly. That means that this generation is also accustomed to the fact that they can receive services the moment that they request it, and that's why we refer to it as self-service generation. This generation is always on, and they are accustomed to the fact that they have service availability instantly and almost 24/7. This generation also is used to using mobile applications and self-service interfaces, so you don't really need to train them on how to use technology. For them, that is a second nature. Especially for this generation, self-service solutions really work and can provide them with the service that they requested. So if we dive a little bit deeper, we can kind of identify what are then the business drivers of service automation. Why are so many companies nowadays using service automation or aspire to use service automation? And that is because there are a number of business drivers that really drive this development. And let's review them in a little bit more detail. First of all, by definition, service automation facilitates a scalable business model, and companies can enter new markets more easily and attract new customers. Think about that. If you provide automated services, it really doesn't matter whether you provide service to 1 or 10 or 1,000 or even 1,000,000 people. Yes, you would need to scale up your technology, but because the service is delivered automatically, it means that you can scale very quickly. This is also one of the reasons that those companies that we talked about earlier were able to grow so quickly, because they really had a scalable business model. Second of all, service automation assists companies in making data-driven decisions. As soon as people communicate with you through an interface, it means you can track their behavior. Every click or swipe that people make within your platform provides you with additional insights on how you can improve your service over time. And that data is all being collected, and companies can make data-driven decisions based upon that. Third of all, service automation is user-centric, meaning that the user is in charge. And in one of the previous slides, we already saw that services are being delivered in an autonomous fashion, meaning the user is in charge. Service is only provided the moment that it's requested. So that means that services need to be designed around the user itself, and in that way need to provide an optimal user experience. Fourth, and this is also of course a big business driver, is that service automation tries to automate unnecessarily manual labor. So things that used to be done by people and were very repetitive can now be automated. And that in most cases provides a more cost-efficient delivery organization. Last but not least, and I think this might be one of the most important aspects or business drivers of the service automation, is that it provides a framework for consistently exceeding user expectations. But with using service automation solutions, you can continually monitor and optimize your processes in order to deliver a service that exceeds user expectations consistently. And that in the long run will make sure that people come back to your company to request more services. Taking all these business drivers into consideration, let's now have a look at the official textbook definition of service automation. And this is what you see on the slide in front of you. Service automation is the practice of an industry that enables their autonomous users to procure, manage and adjust services through self-service technology and concepts in order to systematically exceed user expectations. A lot of the aspects that we covered in the business drivers on the previous slide really come back into that. One of the other things I want you to note about this definition is that service automation is really a practice. It is not a theory, it's not a book only, it's not a process only, it's not technology only. It's really something that you need to do. It needs to be embedded in the organization for it to work. And that's why we refer to it as a practice. The second part of the definition we already discussed, and that is that it's being triggered by autonomous users. So that really means that within service automation solutions, the user is in charge. The third component of the definition states that you would need to have some self-service technology. And that I think is a very logical conclusion, because you would need to have some kind of technology interface, portal or applications so that users can actively trigger requests for service. And last but not least, what we really aim to do with service automation is systematically exceed user expectations, making sure that people really like our service and keep coming back to us. And really think about services that you use on a day-to-day basis, and especially on automated services. Your experience with those service providers is typically so good that you will keep coming back to these service providers over time. Why? Because they typically exceed your user expectations. So this provides a wrap-up of the first module and gives you some ideas about the definitions of service automation. I will see you back in the next module.